Ambulances are being called. Smelling salts are being passed out. Oxygen masks are being put over the noses of everybody. What's going on, you ask? Establishment Washington is absolutely fainting everywhere you turn with the results that dropped this morning from ABC News. They did a poll in consultation with the Washington Post showing Donald Trump holding a 9-point lead on the incumbent Joe Biden. As I say, the uniparty in Washington, D.C. is absolutely aghast at this result. However, your friendly neighborhood front porch conservative is a little bit dubious of these results. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to tap down anyone's enthusiasm. I think these numbers are great if you're a Trump supporter, which, by the way, I happen to be. However, I think these things are just a little bit too rosy. What am I talking about? Hang on, folks. I'm going to explain all this in just one second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. So when I woke up this Sunday morning and saw the results of this poll that came out of the Washington Post and ABC News, I'm not going to lie, I couldn't believe it when I first read it. But the longer that the morning went on and the more I finally got a chance to dive into the news article that accompanied the poll, I began to realize, no, front porch, this is not your imagination. This is a real poll. And needless to say, official Washington is absolutely aghast because this isn't supposed to happen. I mean, after all, former President Donald Trump is under 4 different indictments in 3 different jurisdictions. Excuse me, 4 different jurisdictions. I forgot about Miami. But the point is, this isn't supposed to be happening. Donald Trump should not be this close to Joe Biden, let alone even have a lead on him. But are these numbers a little too good to be true? And see, that's my problem with this. And I'll explain why the more we get into it. But let's take a look at the initial article that accompanies this poll. This is from ABC News. Headline: Trump edges out Biden 51-42 in head-to-head matchup. President's job approval rating is 19 points underwater. Article by Gary Langer, the gentleman who did the poll, by the way. We read the following. President Joe Biden's job approval rating is 19 points underwater. His ratings for handling the economy and immigration are at career lows. A record number of Americans say they've become worse off under his presidency. 3/4 say he's too old for another term. And Donald Trump is looking better in retrospect. All severe for Biden in his reelection campaign ahead. 54% of Americans in the latest ABC News Washington Post poll say they've gotten worse off financially under Biden's presidency, the most for any president in the ABC Post poll since 1986. Just 37% approve of his job performance, while 56% disapprove. Still fewer approve of Biden's performance on the economy, 30%. On handling immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border, Biden's ratings even lower with 23% approval. In terms of intensity of sentiment, 20% strongly approve of his work overall, while 45% strongly disapprove, and the 74% who say he's too old for a second term is up 6 percentage points since May. Views that Trump is too old are also up, but to 50% in this poll, produced for ABC by Langer Research Associates. Reading a little bit further into the article, we find out proved in retrospect. When he reluctantly left office in January 2021, 38% approved of his work as president, essentially the same as Biden's right now. But currently, looking back, 48% say they approve of Trump's performance when he was in office, matching his peak as president. Essentially as many, 49%, now disapprove, down from 60% when he left the White House. Comparison with Biden may be a factor. Among 56% of Americans who disapprove of Biden's work in office, a wide 75% say that, looking back, they approve of Trump. It's also notable that Trump has an even split in his retrospective job approval rating, even as most Americans continue to reject his assertion that the 2020 election was stolen from him. 60% of Americans instead say Biden legitimately won, and an additional 12% have no opinion. 29% think Biden did not win legitimately. With regard to the election, these views play into an early stage election preferences. A remarkable 62% of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents say the party should pick someone other than Biden as its 24 nominee, which, by the way, we've been chronicling that same phenomenon in different polls over the past few months, looking at all this. Desire for a different candidate is at a numerical high, but also consistent with past results. Trump has far broader inter-party support. 54% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents favor him for the GOP nomination, again similar to previous results, and well ahead of his opposition. Ron DeSantis has 15% compared with 25% in May. All others are in single digits. Head-to-head in a hypothetical November 24 matchup, Trump has 51%, while Biden has 42%, numerically up 3 points for Trump and down 2 points for Biden from an ABC post poll done in February, shifts that are not statistically significant. Okay, let's get into this. I know what a lot of friends of mine and a lot of folks in conservative circles are going to say. Oh my God, he's got a 9-point lead. It's a blowout. We're going to win this thing. It's in the bag. No, it's not. Everybody calm down. Let's get some perspective and let's analyze this a little bit. Now, I will freely admit I am no pollster. I'm just a fellow that reads the news and I make some comments about it. But when I saw these numbers, my BS meter went up a little bit. Now, do I think that Langer Research is deliberately trying to snow job the American people in this? No, not necessarily. I think they put out a poll. They've got their results. I don't think they're going out of their way to deliberately deceive anybody. Now, we can sit here and argue about methodologies and who they polled and what numbers they're using, yada, 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 the means by which they polled. The stuff that Richard Baris is probably going to speak to, I'd say, if not tomorrow, definitely by the early part of this week, because I can't wait to hear what the People's Pundit has got to say about this one. But even absent Richard Baris's analysis of this whole thing, this doesn't smell right. Now, I know what people out there are going to say. Oh, come on, front porch. He's got to be blowing him out. No, he doesn't. Do I think Donald Trump has a lead on Joe Biden? Absolutely, I do. I think personally, without doing any polling of my own, even if I had the ability, I'd say Trump's got a lead nationally anywhere from 2 to 5 points. If I had to guess it myself and go to the $2 window and put money on a horse's nose, I'd say he's got a lead anywhere 2 to 5% nationally. Okay? That is why I am so suspicious of this poll, especially in light of past history. Let me point out something to everybody. There is one thing from Rich Baris I'll point out. Let me show you this. This is a tweet he did earlier this evening. Richard says, Langer Research, which conducts the ABC Washington Post poll, was also responsible for the Biden plus 17 in Wisconsin. Now, if you don't know what he's talking about, let me refresh your memories, okay? Campaign cycle, and pollsters were putting out their projections of what they thought was going to happen in the battleground states. ABC News, and that's who they hired to do the poll, polled the state of Wisconsin. And what they came up with was Biden was ahead in Wisconsin by plus 17. Now, when that poll came out, everybody looked at it and went, are you kidding me right now with this? What actually happened in Wisconsin? Biden won the state by 1 point. A 16-point miss. And don't think that everybody wasn't commenting about that after it was all said and done. So that's why I'm a little bit suspicious of this. I don't think that Langer's going out of his way, or the organization's going out of its way to try to deliberately snow people. I'm very suspicious of the results of this poll, especially given how big a miss they've had on previous recent occasions. That said, however, there are some things about this poll that I think ought to be talked about, and it's this. Let's start with a couple things. Number one, there is a definite trend with these polls. Let me pull up Real Clear Politics, show you guys something. This is the average of the most recent, let me count it real fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Most recent 12 polls that have been done on a head-to-head matchup between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Okay, now, as a general rule of thumb, I do not like the average of polls that RCP does. And the reason that I don't like it is because it works from the assumption that all the polls are equally valid. In other words, the results they've got are accurate and true. Well, what if one poll is so screwed up that the results are so crazy and then it messes up the average? See, that's my problem with this. But there is one useful thing about the average of polls. You see a trend line. And let's start from the bottom up, okay? Messenger, Harris X poll, Trump +1. Quinnipiac, Biden +1. Fox News, Trump +2. Economist YouGov, Biden +1. Rasmussen, Biden +1. Harvard Harris, Trump +4. CBS News, Trump +1. Yahoo, Emerson, NBC News all show a tie. ABC News shows Trump now they're saying +10, but the reality is the poll is +9. What I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is this. There's a definite trend line here. It's either a trend line toward they're tied or Trump with a slight lead. Now, a lot of people all day long have been saying, that ABC poll is an outlier. It's an outlier. There's no way he's ahead that far. Okay, maybe that's true. I'm not saying they're wrong. But it confirms a trend that's already there. Trump is starting to make a move. Now, let me show you something else by way of trends. We're going to go a little bit further. Now, if you've never really looked at Real Clear Politics, when you look at that page, they keep all the polls that have been done. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at a list of polls that go all the way back to March. Let me show you something, okay? Take a look at this. The last time that ABC News, Washington Post did a poll on this race was back in May. Notice something here. They have Trump up by 6. Go back to what we were looking at earlier. They now have him up +9. A shift of really 3 points. 4 if you believe what you see printed up here. My point is this. There is a trend line. Okay? And the trend is Trump's picking up steam. So even though this poll, given its source, might be a little suspect, and again, I'm waiting for some people who do really good analysis of these things, Rich Baris, among others, to get into the guts of this poll and start talking about it. But even absent their commentary, I'm suspicious of these numbers. I think Trump's got a lead. I don't think it's as big as everybody thinks it is, especially the ABC Washington Post poll. Now, there is one other trend I'll show you. Mentioned it a moment ago. There's another poll that came out today from NBC News. It shows Trump and Biden in a tie. But go back and look at the last time NBC News did a poll on this. They did it back in June. Biden was up +4. Now, according to NBC News, they're tied. What I'm getting at is this. When I say that there is a trend to the polls, there's definitely movement toward Trump. I mean, NBC had Biden up by 4 in June. Now they're tied. ABC Washington Post back in May had Trump up by 6, which again caused everybody in Washington to get a case of the vapors. Now they've got him up +9. Okay, maybe there's a movement here. Maybe there is a trend line toward Trump because of various events, various pieces of news, etc. There is a trend here, and I think it's worth considering. Now, there's also some other points. Number 2, this is the second poll to show Trump at or above 50%. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Take a look at this. Go back to that most recent average of the 12 polls, okay? Notice the CBS poll right here. Like it was done 50-49. Trump had a 1-point lead. Yeah, it's a very small lead. Yes, it's inside the margin of error. However, Trump cracked 50%. I cannot remember a poll in 2016 or even 2020 where Trump did that well. For the first time, maybe ever, Trump is cracking 50% in a head-to-head matchup against Joe Biden. Okay? Now, look at the ABC poll. 52. There is some kind of movement toward Donald Trump. Now, how much of it's there, what it really means, we don't know. And keep in mind, we are 13 months away from the general election. Okay? That is an eternity in American politics. Anything can change. Point number 3 to consider. Most of these polls that are being done right now are registered voters, not likely voters. Now, I bring that up for a very simple reason, and that is a registered voter poll will tell you generally what people are thinking, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go vote. I tend to put more stock in a likely voter poll. Now, notice this as well. Interestingly, there have been some likely voter polls that have been done. Taking a real quick peek here, Rasmussen did a poll earlier part of this month, 979 likely voters. The CBS poll was likely voters. That was a little surprising to me. I wasn't expecting CBS to do something like that until sometime next fall, but they did it anyway. Folks, I'm not saying that the ABC Washington Post poll is completely wrong. It's like I said, I think Donald Trump has a lead. I just don't think it's as big as that poll indicates. Now, is it possible? Yeah, sure, it's possible. It is altogether possible. I'm just not convinced that it's highly probable. So, enjoy the. If you're a Trump supporter, take heart. It's good news, but just my personal advice, take it with a grain of salt. Remember, like I said earlier, this same polling firm came up with Biden plus 17 in Wisconsin, and they wound up missing the final result by 16 points. So keep in mind, let's keep our powder dry. Let's listen to some people who know what they're talking about, which, by the way, I will always give a shout out to Rich Baris. He's probably going to be talking about this probably tomorrow on his live stream on YouTube and Rumble. So check him out. Usually comes on around noon or somewhere in that general area. But yeah, let's listen to some people who really know what they're talking about on this, and let's figure out why these results are the way they are. But in the meanwhile, I think it can be safely concluded there is definitely a trend toward Donald Trump. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number 1, if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please do so. Number 2, please leave a comment below. I would really love to know what you think about this. Number 3, hit the bell for notifications. I always want to make sure that you're aware when new videos and new live streams are coming out. Number 4, please share the video around. And finally, please give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.